So today we're going to talk about a little philosophy of mine, which is don't give in to your thoughts, give in to your dreams. So that's a big open statement, and what does that mean? Really what it goes back to is like in our childhood when we were staring out the window and our teacher was telling us to pay attention, right? When we're constantly in that part of the brain that's alert and aware, that's keeping track of time, keeping track of lists, calculating, analyzing, right? That's not the part of the brain that you need to be for rest and recovery. And we say here that you can get sleep, but you're not getting rest. So the quality of your rest, the quality of your sleep, depends on where your brain is at. That's why things like meditation helps. Like meditation, there's no wrong or right way to meditate. The hard part is shutting off the chatter. Where do I have to go? Where do I have to be? What am I going to cook for dinner? What time does Johnny have to be at baseball? All of these things kind of add up. Add on an asshole boss, add on, health issues. You see how we constantly kind of like are analyzing or keeping track of these lists where our brain really starts to burn out and we don't let it go. Maybe you had a dream that you forgot, your homework, or you didn't get the classes done on time and you're not going to graduate. These are all these little nagging thoughts that kind of accumulate. But why is it relevant? It's relevant because here, when we're in the treatment table, we need to be in the dream state where you're staring out the window, as I say to the patient, milkshake waterfalls and rainbow unicorns, a land of imagination, or what people like around here because we're so close to the shore, the beach, the happy place. Everybody has a happy place. But that's where you want to be during treatment, because if you let it, you will go into a pleasant sort of relaxed dream state we call the Acu-zone. So relaxation with the endorphin release really hit, and you can get to the next level. So,
yeah,
comments and thoughts.
No, if I recall correctly, during some of our conversations, you said that this kind of harkens back to our ancestral path.
Yes.
Past when we were in the trees.
Right. So before our ancestors hit the ground, before we had more complicated brains, we were going from branch to branch. We had to avoid falling out of the tree when we slept. Or becoming food to a predator. So that's, just a very physical, it's not physical relaxation, it's just relaxation, right? It's like rest or sleep as a primitive being, but as our brains get complicated, we get flooded with these thoughts, right? These thoughts that kind of badger us all the time, that thing in the back of your head, that constant underlying seething tension. So oftentimes people will get to a state where they'll start, right? The trip dream, we know that from inception, is that the brain wants to go into a deeper rested state, but it kind of catches up and says, hey, you're not in your bed, you're in a treatment table. But that's good too. Physical relaxation is very important. That is a rested state. But if you can kind of channel it and kind of get into like the flight dream, right? Maybe somebody's had it. I've had it. Have you ever had the flight dream? Mm-hmm. Yeah, right? So what is that? That's physical and mental relaxation. Obviously, you're not flying, but the brain thinks so, yeah. Right? And that's a very important place to be for rest, for recovery, for autonomic function. Like, think of the things that you don't control. You can hold it in, you still have to breathe. You can hold it in, you still have to go to the bathroom. Your heart rate, your digestion, women with their menstrual cycles, hormonal releases, that's a lot of stuff the body has to get done. And we're constantly in that state of like thinking and thought and keeping track and being analytical. The brain doesn't go into parasympathetic. We want our patients to go into parasympathetic because that's where the magic happens.
Absolutely. And it's funny because that phenomenon that will happen, we'll walk into the room and somebody said, oh, I was resting, I just jerked awake.
Right. Yes.
That same.
Yes, that's where we want you to be. Not on your phone, not on TikTok, not on Instagram, all these things, and then take that into consideration. All the thoughts in the back of your head, and then the scrolling, the 6 miles, just like the nonsense, the badgering. Sometimes it's just okay to take 20 minutes and not do anything, right? I say to the patients, when you hear this is your time to rest. This is not the time to kind of worry about the stuff that's top of mind and that creates anxiety or depression or stress. Believe me, it'll be there waiting for you, but not for the 20 minutes, 30 minutes that you're on the table. That time is for the break to kind of give it a break, let it reconcile the thoughts. The things that it comes into consideration clinically is that if a woman's having a difficulty getting pregnant and her period's all over the place, right? Where that gets regulated is in that rested state on the table, not on the job, not being pressured and meeting deadlines, not trying to get the other kids to class on time. Like all these things, all that constant pressure really throws things off. And where it kind of resets is in the parasympathetic rest mode.
Including the pressure they put on themselves, right? For
Yeah.
fertility, right?
Yes,
It's
absolutely.
counterintuitive, but the less that they focus
Yes,
on it, the
absolutely.
better
Look,
it is.
it's a product of society. Nobody's asking you to leave your job. Maybe you find a less stressful job. Maybe there's not a less stressful job out there. That does have something to do with it, right? The other thing it applies to is pain, right? The pain, right? We'll go back to the analogy. We don't use filaments here. We don't use needles. We use filaments because needles are what your pediatrician stabbed you with, and that sort of like sensation stored in the brain, along with your neck pain, along with your back pain, and it's always kind of there. So when you're shackled to a desk on a computer, yes, your neck and back is going to hurt, but when you're on the table, right? You want that to shut off because we can modulate that. In the quiet state is when we can turn the volume down on that, so that when your pain is initially an 8 or a 9, when you come in, it should be a 7 or a 6 the next time, or a 5 and a 4, and then maybe you get 12 to 24 hour relief. That happens when you're in the rested state, in that dream state.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting too, because I'm sure you know like traditional martial arts methods, right? When you hold the static postures, right? Like, I don't know if you've done them, but when you do them, like, it hurts, and you have this, like, mental war with yourself, like, why am I doing this? Like, this hurts, stop. But you obviously know you want to do it for a purpose, so you keep doing it. But there's a certain point where you just accept the pain. You're just like, okay, this is what I decided to do. It actually starts hurting less.
Yeah.
Because you kind of stop resisting that this is happening, and you kind of say, okay, this is happening. To me, I see a parallel with that parasympathetic state. It's like, once you accept, once you stop fighting, once you're able to just, okay, the pain now is part of my experience, the brain can kind of, okay, I don't need to worry about this anymore. And ironically, it makes it hurt less. And I feel like with the acupuncture, it's like somebody comes in with like shoulder pain, we get them into that parasympathetic state along with the endorphin release. And
It's all a lot of pieces of the moving puzzle, but a lot of it really depends on giving yourself that break, allowing yourself to stare out the window. In first grade, when Miss Sheridan would be like, pay attention, pay attention. I don't want to pay attention, But the thing that, along the lines of martial arts, I think where we parallel most is with yoga. If you're doing yoga the right way, not hot yoga or power yoga or flex yoga or sculpt yoga, no. Real yoga, when you do like a vinyasa and at the end you finish with a nidra, when you are stressing the muscles or stretching the muscles, you're creating a tension in the musculature which will release endorphins while you're doing the treatment. So when you wind down in a restorative yin sort of like end of vinyasa flow, then you can get into a deeper meditation because your body's pumping the endorphins from the stretch session. And then once you give yourself that space to kind of like not be badgered by your thoughts, that's where you can kind of reach a deeper nidra, a deeper sense of meditation. Acupuncture is induced meditation, right? I did it over and over in the detox. People were like knocked out, a little Navajo flute, out like lights. But it's in an environment, it's controlled, it's quiet, it's calm, you can do this at home. You can reflect it and mimic your treatment. You don't need the filaments, but what you need is to turn the lights down, shut the TV off, put some music on, maybe some aromatherapy. The thing with aromatherapy, it's not what you're breathing in, it's how you're breathing it in. When you get distracted by the punch list of things that you shouldn't be thinking about while you're meditating, it's the scent that kind of brings you back and anchors it. It's the breath that brings you back. It's the quiet or the music that brings you back, or the dim lights that brings you back into the rested state. Again, not a wrong or right way to meditate. The hard part is shutting off the thoughts and accessing the dream state.
Yeah. So this isn't just good for healing, right? Recovery, it's good for prevention too. If you keep yourself in that state and understand, okay, I shouldn't stress out, or I should take some time with doing acupuncture, meditation, hopefully both, right? Then you can also prevent disease.
Absolutely. Well, that's why meditation's good for you, right? That's why people tell you to do it, but it's overwhelming. It's hard. The best video I've ever seen was David Lynch did one on transcendental meditation, and he's a kind of like a creative guy, whether you like his stuff or not. He was able to kind of like, illustrate literally on a whiteboard where you want to be, where you want your brain to be when you're meditating. But I know it's hard. I mean, some people just don't know really how to get there. And I guess at this point, what I'd like to say is like when we give the at-home care and the stretches with the acupuncture at home, you want to do them in a state where, there's no distraction, okay? So that when you do the stretch, when you kind of like stretch up to the discomfort, not into it, you can kind of like reach that parasympathetic state so that you're actually at home modulating, right? Because we get relief when we stretch, especially if it's a muscular issue, which we treat here. When you give the muscle the attention and the care and you shut the brain off, you are modulating how you experience that discomfort, sort of piggyback on the relief that you're getting, you're maintaining that relief with the stretching at home. You're kind of mimicking or paralleling what we're doing here. Lights down, music, sound, aromatherapy, all that is critical. We're constantly being badgered. If we're talking about social media, you guys are on your phone right now, but that's the state in recovery is the opposite of what we're talking about.
Yeah, and within that, there's like a subtle piece which we try to inculcate to our patients, some to some degree of success, others not, is that this is a lifestyle.
Right.
Meaning it's not just about the 20 minutes. The 20 minutes we give them is great, but it's about following the suggestions, following the changes, making this a priority, because if you don't make that space for the recovery, for the parasympathetic in your life as a pattern, as something consistent, then you're just going to be overwhelmed by what life has to happen. But if you're creating it here, when the stretching, maybe, hey, you have an appointment, but something else comes up, that's the time to reinforce the pattern that, no, I want this in my life. I'm not going to let, like, the gardener came and now I have to cancel this appointment.
Right.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like about making that pattern in your life for parasympathetic, valuing it outside the treatment room.
So thoughts are complicated, they add up. Let's take the time to discuss the patients who suffered like a major trauma, capital T trauma, loss, physical adverse childhood experiences, things like that. When you don't process the thoughts properly, they're always there. And when they're there, or some patients who come right out of rehab or detox or whatever, they're kind of forced into society with all the distractions. When you're that stressed out, it's almost impossible to give yourself that room or quiet. But you can see where you're reliving these thoughts over and over again. You're re-triggering this sort of sympathetic response. You're constantly fighting a bear. You're being chased by a saber-toothed tiger all the time. That's why it's important to just give yourself a break from it and not do that, right? So it takes work. We can help you. We can guide you through it. It is important. It's an essential piece of it, but giving yourself a break, you're allowed. You're allowed to give yourself a break. I say to the patients, I know it's a lofty goal initially when we're first meeting. It's like, can you meditate? No. Do you take naps? No. Can you go with quiet time? No. So I'll ask, can you give yourself a break from your own brain, right? And it's like a big maybe, because the mind is complicated. And when you stack up all these little things, these little fires that add up, you have a mental conflagration that will not let you rest. But you know what? Here, hopefully, or at least in the detox, when we used to treat patients, the endorphins hit the right atmosphere. You can. It's attainable. And once you realize that, it could be a possibility.
So if I were to sum up what you're saying, it sounds like through all these spectrums, to make rest and relaxation a priority. Because often we don't, right?
Yeah.
We always say this is more important. Oh, my dog's sick. I mean, now that I'm listening to you speak, I can understand, the thing about the dogs, right?
Yeah.
Or the pets, right?
Yeah.
It's like essentially you're putting this thing as a priority over your own rest and relaxation.
Yes, pets are family and friends and members, but the fact is you also are important too. And if you're constantly, on top of all that, all your daily stuff, now the dog gets sick, there's always going to be something. You have to prioritize the time where you can't allow it. You really have to come down, because if you're burning out right into sleep, well, guess what? You're going to get agitated sleep. Yeah. Whatever substance, or if you're taking medication to fall asleep, that's not helpful. If you're drinking to go to sleep, that's not helpful either. Substances, it interferes and interrupts with the quality of it, but it is a ritual. It's a wind down. It should take you 20, 30 minutes to just empty the mental garbage and just try to, ladies, there's baths, there's heating pads, there's all these things you can do. Even fitness is a physical stressor, right? People think they go to the gym to relax. It's not relaxing. You're beating your body. It's a physical stressor. So take the time out. 20 minutes. Shut it off. Give yourself a break from your own brain. Don't give in to your thoughts. Give in to your dreams. It's all very important, because if it all adds up, it becomes anxiety and depression. And we'll talk about that next week. See?